Hey, what's up y'all? This is William, the Permaculture Consultant, and today I'm going to be showing you guys a permaculture technique that's going to help build topsoil. It's going to suppress weeds. By the way, you use it in your garden. It's going to retain moisture. It's going to help make your irrigation more effective, and it's also going to attract worms. That method is called an instant garden. Now, a lot of people talk about it, but they don't really go into explaining how to do it or the proper layers or anything like that. That's exactly what we're going to do today. If you've been following along, you know that this was a potato bed and that was the onion bed over there, and now they're both vacant and we didn't get much of a harvest out of those, just a meal. So what we're going to be doing today is actually installing an instant garden on top of this raised bed. Now, it's a soil building technique. I know it says instant garden in the title and I already have clearly a garden here, but it's a very, very fast soil building technique. If you're breaking in raw land or something, or if this is your first time gardening on a particular spot, a good way to break that in and then to invite the microbes and the worms and all the good guys is to do an instant garden. Step one, if you haven't already done so, or if you're not in a similar situation as this, where everything is already cleared and stuff like that, then you're gonna wanna go ahead and mow the vegetation that's already existing there as low as possible and leave it in place, because it's gonna decompose and help fertilize the microbes that we're going to try to invite here in a second. Also, if you have any soil amendments that you wanna add, now would be the time to go ahead and add them. If you're using compost or anything like that, use quite a bit less than you think is necessary. If you're using compost, just do a light dusting, a light sprinkling on top, because we're going to be basically composting in place with the ingredients that we put on after this. So that's step one. Clear the vegetation, add compost if you want to, add any other soil amendments if you want to. On to step two. Now, the next ingredient is going to be our cardboard. Now, this particular setup that I have right here is really handy in saturating the cardboard, and whenever it's saturated, it's easier to remove this tape right here. So what you're going to want to do, especially if you live in an arid environment, you're going to want to saturate your cardboard first. There's a lot of complaints about using cardboard and stuff like that. I usually ignore all of them. Most pigments and stuff like that are all soy-based. They're going to decompose. Any other leftover toxins will be locked up in the medium and long carbonic acids of the composting process again. So use cardboard. There's no reason not to use cardboard. Bill Mollison, the grandfather of permaculture, used old carpet. This is far better than any of that. Anyways, this setup is pretty good for saturating your cardboard. You want to make sure that it is saturated, especially if you're in an arid environment. If not, then you run the risk of this cardboard staying hydrophobic and wicking water in times of drought and stuff. One of the benefits of the cardboard is that it'll wick water whenever it's too wet, and it'll absorb water whenever it's too dry. But you first have to break that hydrophobic barrier first. After you do that, then it saturates and soaks up water pretty easily and pretty quickly. And it doesn't have to be complete saturation or that thorough. You don't want it falling apart on you, but you do want to make sure, you have a completely, oh, there's a dry spot right there, but you have a completely wet piece of cardboard before you start applying it to the ground. You have a couple options when it comes to layering. You can go up to 3 feet thick if you want, before the surface between this cardboard and the actual soil goes anaerobic. Like I'm saying earlier, that tape is super easy to remove if you go ahead and get it saturated first. But you can go up to 3 feet thick on this stuff. Most of people's problems is that they don't apply enough cardboard. And then it's super easy for the weeds to just poke through, or whatever to poke through, and everything you did was just for nothing. So apply this stuff thick. If you're going thick, then make sure that you leave open areas for your plants and stuff. Because once you layer this up 2 or 3 layers, then it starts getting a little heavy, a little hard to penetrate with your typical trowel and stuff. So you can even overlap these, and in fact you should, depending on what your weed pressure is like. If you're in a scenario where you're trying to fight back Bermuda grass, then you want to go super, super heavy on this stuff. And you want to do this process probably as quickly as possible, so you're not, so the cardboard's not drying out too soon. Also, don't worry about the type of cardboard you're using. I know some people are worried about the wax cardboard and whatnot. it's all good. Use all of it. It'll all decompose. The cardboard actually acts as like a little super highway for your worms. So once you put down worms, or once you put down cardboard, your worms just come out of the woodworks. Because they have those little tunnels, those little pathways to just travel through. If I haven't said this already, you do want to kind of try to do this as quickly as you can before everything dries out. And if everything does dry out, then just spritz it back down with water, and it should accept the water pretty quickly after that, because you've already broken that hydrophobic layer. Now the next part, and I need to do this as quickly as possible before that dries up, is to take all of this green material that I took out of these beds actually. I'm going to rehydrate it and use it as a mulch on this cardboard. I thought I was going to use it as a compost ingredient. Instead, I'm going to, well, it technically is still a compost ingredient. I'm just going to be composting in place. Fluff it up quite a bit, and because I only want like a thin layer going on top of this cardboard. I don't want inches and inches, I should say. Now, if this was more of like a food forest application, then I would go much thicker on this mulch layer. But this is just a garden application. I'm not going to go so thick because some of the seedlings that you use and stuff, like some of them are only a few inches tall. Make sure you rehydrate it, and make sure you cover the entirety of the cardboard. You don't want any exposed cardboard after you get done with this. Now, I will say, sometimes you misjudge on the materials. And let's say you don't have as much mulch as you needed for the amount of cardboard that you put down. That's perfectly fine. Whenever you do get the mulch that you need, rehydrate the cardboard, like spray it down, stuff like that, saturate it very, very well, and then go ahead and put your mulch on top. But you want to make sure like that your cardboard is wet before you put your mulch on top, or else you're just going to cause issues. And that's where a lot of the failure of an instant garden has actually come from, was just not making sure everything was properly hydrated. Now another option, which is what I'm going to do, is to just put the mulch down there and then spray everything down, which is exactly what I'm going to do. And if I hadn't said, this mulching step is step number 3. Step number 1 is cut down the vegetation. Step number 2 is put down saturated cardboard. Step number 3, cover that cardboard with some sort of carbon mulch. If you're worried about seeds, you can use straw. That's a good option. You can use some sort of lower carbon. Like, you don't want to use mulch and stuff if you're using it in your garden. You could use, if you wanted to, you could actually use hay that your chickens have gone through, because they're going to go through and pick out most of your, seeds and stuff like that. What else could you use? Just get creative. Depending on where you are, it determines what kind of carbon is going to be available to you. If you live, let's say, in the tropics, bamboo leaves might make sense to you. I just got a text earlier today. What's it called? Cotton shower, cotton mash, something like that, something along those lines. But it's one of the, the byproducts of the cotton making process, or the cotton harvesting process. There's a bunch of different carbon options that you have available to you. Just look to see what you have and try to use stuff like that. Stuff that, if it's higher carbon, then you want to usually use that, or wood products and stuff, you usually want to use that in a forest type setting. This garden, think of what you're going to be feeding, basically. This is the food that I'm putting down for my microbes. This is going to feed bacteria mostly pretty doggone well. It's also going to feed fungi pretty well. A wood product is going to feed fungi very, very well, and bacteria less so. So it all depends on what ratios you're going for. It all depends on what you're trying to feed, and the microbes you're attracting all depends on what you're trying to grow. Like having a whole bunch of fungi in my soil when I'm trying to grow like Brussels sprouts or something is not going to be beneficial to the Brussels sprout. And now it's time to plant. Sorry if I sound like I'm speaking a little fast. My camera keeps overheating in this Texas sun. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and plant now. Now, if you need any permaculture consultations, then hit up the links down below. If you need a permaculture Q&A answered, then comment down below with the hashtag permaculture Q&A at the beginning. And if you want to sign up for any, like an email newsletter, you know what that is, find out all the events and stuff, sign up for it down below. It's in the description. Everything I just said is in the description. Let's get on with the video. I'm going to be planting these peppers. These are cornito peppers. I'm going to be planting them in this bed. Now, to plant, all I'm going to do is puncture through my little cardboard layer right there. Now, if you have very, very bad soil, what I would suggest doing is getting some potting mix just to begin with. And instead of covering everything up in this potting mix, what I would do is just fill the hole that you're planting in, fill that hole with potting mix, and then take your plant out and go ahead and plant it in that hole. And then if you want to, you can add a little bit of potting mix around it just like that. Now with these peppers, I'm just trimming the few diseased lower leaves and stuff. And then after that, you want to bring your mulch back in. Make sure you're not uncovering anything else, but make sure your mulch is covering up the plant that you just put in place. And then after all that, you're going to water it. I'm going to water it as soon as I get done planting everything else. And that's basically it. This is an instant garden. This is super, super easy. I got all of this done with, you know, recording and everything, which takes, you know, about 3 times longer to do any task if you record it. But it took me just a few hours to get this done. Half that stuff, half that time was just prep for recording. So all that to say that, I mean, gardening, if you have crappy soil, you don't have to go, you know, building a huge expensive raised beds or buying material or anything like that. You really can just do an instant garden. Do it the Jeff Lawton style instant garden. We've done this, me and my parents have done instant gardens in like way harsher climates than this, or way harsher environments than this, meaning like the soil was just absolutely rocky, it was just crappy, it was bad. And it's, I mean, there's a solid thick layer of loamy soil at the top of that rocky soil now. It's highly beneficial. It's one of the fastest ways I know of to grow topsoil or to build topsoil. And I think it's going to be helpful to a lot of you beginner homesteaders out there, even the veteran homesteaders. Maybe you've never tried this and you want to expand your garden and stuff. This is a pretty cool technique. So hopefully this video was helpful for you. If it was, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button and maybe leave a comment down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, we'll see you.